Hello everyone. Today the presentation is based on MAPC Block 3 based on personality. Under this unit we are going to see three major aspects. One, the concept and definition of personality. Second, the development of personality in various stages, factors. Third, the theories of personality. We have a time constraint. Within the short span of time, we have to cover up the entire areas. That's a challenge, in fact. So we'll straight away enter to the concept and definition of personality. I think that the term personality is very miserably mistaken because many people have a tendency to judge personality simply looking into the external features. If a person is good looking and well dressed, oh, what a personality, people exclaim. I think this has nothing to do with the personality. If external appearance is the criterion for judging the qualities of personality, our Stephen Hawking, our Nick Vujicic, even Mahatma Gandhi, Abraham Lincoln, many others' personalities should be very, very poor when compared to many film stars. So this is a mistake. Personality is everything about an individual. Of course, the physical and physiological functions inherent in a person's behavior, that is very important. More important is his own or her own concept about oneself. There are social aspects, emotional aspects, character elements, our cognitive functions, so many things put into one shell, we call it personality. Everything about an individual. There is a very popular definition, famous definition of personality by G.W. Alport, Gordon W. Alport. He has evolved this definition only after examining hundreds of definitions of personality. His definition is like this. Personality is a dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his characteristic behavior and thought. So many terms are used in this. It's a dynamic organization, dynamic, not static. Personality is subject to change. Any traumatic experience, a single incident is enough to change one's outlook about life, his functioning, proper functioning. Say, for example, a sweet girl, a 16-year-old or 17-year-old girl, very brisk and energetic like a butterfly. She has undergone a rape attempt, suppose. That very traumatic event will lead to change her personality. That will be more than sufficient to change her personality. What I mean is, after this traumatic incident, if she undergoes a counseling, several counseling sessions under an expert counselor, again change is possible. So it's not static, it is not fixated, it is subject to change. Organization within the individual, that's also a very important terminology used by Alport. My personality is within myself. This is why Carl Rogers, instead of using the word personality, Carl Rogers used the word self-concept, self-theory, it is called. So within myself, what I think about myself, whether I am realistic in perceiving my limitations as well as my potentialities, whether I am capable of incorporating the social norms into my day-to-day living. All these things come into picture within the individual of those psychophysical systems. Yeah, two words are there: psychic system as well as physical systems. More important, physiological functions. These are all important in personality. And all these put together, blended together, determine his unique behavior, that is, characteristic behavior and thought processes. I repeat the definition once again. Personality is the dynamic organization within the individual of those psychophysical systems that determine his characteristic behavior and thought. I think this is the most acceptable definition of personality. We have to understand that personality nucleus, there is a concept called personality nucleus. Thomas and Chess, two psychologists, conducted their studies, and I think that they were responsible for coining this term for temperament. There is a word temperament. Temperament is inborn emotional propensity to react to situations. Inborn, it is. We are born with some characteristics, genetically endowed characteristics. As a result of the interaction with environmental factors, we develop it and we evolve a unique, characteristic personality, or we acquire certain traits that are unique, can never be compared with others, right? So, this is about the concept of personality. For a want of time, I am skipping to the next concept. Now we have to talk about the development of personality. In the case of development of personality, we have several stages in development. You might be familiar with the Freudian concept, psychoanalytic concept of personality development through 5 stages. Stages of personality development. He calls them psychosexual stages of development. How libidinal energy focuses on various parts of the body. Libidinal energy means the vital psychic energy inborn. And it is basically libidinal and hedonistic, sexual in nature. And therefore, these erotic areas in the brain, in the body, we call it erogenous zones. Freud called it erogenous zones. So, mouth is the erogenous zone in the initial stage up to 2 years, oral stage. And if there is an oral fixation, even after attaining adulthood, a person will behave like a child. He'll be more dependent. He'll be shy. He'll be sucking his thumbs when he is facing a challenging situation. These probabilities are there. The next stage is the erogenous zone shifts to anus. So the child enjoys the pressure in the area and he delays evacuation to get the pressure. This stage, anal stage, it's also called anal sadistic stage because the child is sadistic in his approach. He enjoys spoiling things, biting his mother while sucking for milk. And this anal sadistic stage is the second stage. There is every possibility for fixation in that stage. So people become sadistic, masochists in later life. The third stage is called phallic stage. The erogenous zone shifts to genitalia, genital organs, and getting fixated sometimes there. The exhibitionism and such other variant sexual behavior will be the result in personality. Next period is called latency period. It is 5 to 12 years roughly. This latency period is characterized by the disappearance of erogenous zone. It is diffused in every part of the body. No specific part of the body is associated directly with this erotic energy. Therefore, it's a period of internal integrity and consolidation. Children used to play or engage in fighting, boys particularly, girls in dancing, and these kinds of engagements are observed. And the last stage, again shifting to genitalia, after maturation of genital organs and sex hormones, this period, after 12 years, after puberty, a person, up to a person's death, we call it genital, not we, Freud called it genital stage. Similarly, Eriksson, another person, he also has classified 8 stages in a lifespan to denote personality development. His stages are called Erik H. Eriksson, that is his full name. His stages are called psychosocial stages of development. Up to 2 years, he calls it a period of trust versus mistrust. The second stage, trust in mother and mistrust in mother particularly, because the child depends upon mother mostly. If he mistrusts mother because mother is inconsistent and unpredictable, that will be last longing. It will be eternal. The influence will be eternal till the end of his life. Trust versus mistrust. Second stage is autonomy versus shame or doubt. Autonomy. If the child's autonomy because in each stage, there is a crisis to be resolved. If this crisis is resolved systematically, of course, it will lead to an integrated personality. If failure in resolving this crisis in each stage, that will end up in crisis in personality. Right? The second stage is autonomy versus. Child is like a butterfly or like the opening of a flower, but we cannot forcibly open it. What will happen if you forcibly open a flower? Similarly, a child unfolds spontaneously so that it will become a full-fledged personality, right? Similarly, if you constrained a butterfly in a plastic bag or in a tin, what will happen? If autonomy is restricted, the child may end up with these kinds of eventualities, undesirable consequences in personality. The third stage is initiative versus guilt. Initiative. The child is eager to help his parents, help others. So if that is thwarted, discouraged, guilt feeling, this guilt will end up to the last stage of our life, according to Eriksson. The next stage is industry versus inferiority, especially from 5 years to 12 years, childhood. Industry means hardworking. If the child is made to work hard, especially helping his parents, helping in every household activities, he will develop belongingness. That's an excellent quality in personality. Belongingness. Otherwise, he will develop inferiority. The next stage in personality is identity versus identity crisis. This is the period of adolescence. his identity that has to be established during this period. If this crisis is not resolved properly, identity crisis will be the eventual consequence. Okay. Next stage is intimacy versus isolation. It's a young adulthood period. People engage in marriages and establishing permanent relationships, affectionate relationship, preparation for a family. See, this intimacy, failure to establish this intimacy, persons will feel isolation. I have no one to love me. I have no one to love too. This feeling will be there. This will end up in frustration. The next stage is called generativity versus stagnation. The most productive period in life is after 25, 30, that period up to 50, 55 period. During this period, a person's generativity, productivity, not only producing offsprings, producing, say for example, if he is a writer, producing books, painter, producing paintings, and if a teacher, producing quality students, right? And in any walk of life, this can occur, productivity. If not, stagnation. I need not explain what stagnation. And the last stage, the culminating stage, is integrity versus despair. Integrity in personality, becoming philosophical, becoming mature, becoming spiritual, even prepared to face one's own death, the death of one's own spouse, having an emotional state of contentment, satisfaction, failing which the result will be despair. So these are the stages, psychosocial stages proposed by Eric H. Eriksson. He was in fact a disciple of Freud, and he is also called a psychoanalyst. Okay, now we are entering to the next area, the development of cognition. Cognitive development. The most important contribution in this dimension of personality is given by Jean Piaget, a Swiss psychologist. He was not a psychologist, in fact. He was a biologist. His PhD was in biology. His theory is called psychogenetic epistemology, theory of knowledge through evolution, through maturation. And he talks about development of schema, cognitive schema. The plural is schemata. Nowadays, schemas also are being used. This schema is later on transformed into schemes. I have to make it clear, I am sure. Schema is the iconic representation of our experiences, sensory experiences, and the replica of sensory experiences preserved in the cognitive structures. That is called a schema. Whereas scheme is the symbolic representation. I'll make it clear by an example. Suppose if I am saying the word amma in Malayalam, every language, I think everybody could understand what I mean. Amma. Suppose you are recalling the face of your mother or the echoistic sensory input, that the voice of your mother, that is called a schema. Whereas when I say Amma, you have mother tongue, the mother earth, the motherhood in the poem of our famous poet Balamani Amma, or the concept of universal motherhood proposed by Mother Teresa, right? It is a symbolic representation. This symbolic cognitive representation is called schemes, whereas the iconic, the image oriented, visual image oriented representations are called schemata. These are developing through certain stages. There are so many concepts proposed by Piaget. He talks about assimilation, accommodation, and adaptation. This theory itself is a theory of adaptation. Our cognition adapts to meet with the challenges of environment, physical and cultural environment, right? So he uses the word assimilation. Assimilation means whenever a new experience is there, we are accommodating, fitting it into the existing schema. That is called assimilation. Accommodation is different. Accommodation means if the existing schema cannot incorporate the new experience, we are enlarging or modifying the existing schema. I'm sure an example will make it clear. The example of a physics teacher teaching about metals in the class. He talks about different kinds of metals and the properties of metals. I need not repeat the properties of metals. In the next class, chemistry class, the chemistry teacher comes with a bottle full of mercury and he says, this is a metal. The child's existing schema of metal is a solid something that can be expanded, that can be changed into oxides by burning, right? But when mercury is shown, the child cannot accommodate it into its existing schema. And when the teacher explains, this also can be changed to oxide, this also will expand. Haven't you seen the thermometer in which mercury is expanding and we are measuring our body temperature? Likewise, the properties of these metals are attributed to the new experience. And this process is called, modifying the existing schema so as to incorporate the new experience. That is called accommodation. Through this assimilation and accommodation, we adapt our behavior, cognitive behavior, to meet environmental challenges, and cognition develops through 4 stages. Sensory motor period, pre-operational period, concrete operational period, and formal operational period. The final stage in which the person is capable of abstract thinking, probability thinking, hypothetical, deductive thinking, etc. Since we have constraint of time, we cannot enter into the other details of this because this is our time-consuming presentations, which we cannot afford to now. Yeah, the next stage in personality development is the moral and ethical development, even the spiritual development. A psychologist called Lawrence Kohlberg with Piaget also. They have developed theories and stages, about 6 stages in 3 levels. Conventional level, pre-conventional level, conventional level, and post-conventional level. In each level, there are 2 sub-stages. So morality is also a question of development. So how a person's personality develops? There are hereditary factors, need not to say, genetically determined, chromosome, is are responsible for that. its characteristics, environmental nurturing on the genetically endowed characteristics. These are all factors broadly classified, uh, genetic characteristics and environmental nurture, nature and nurture. These are the two major aspects of development. See, in our next presentation, we are going to pinpoint our discussion only to the theories of personality, looking to some more details in the theories of personality. Thank you for patient listening. I do expect your feedback because your feedback is the motivating force that enables me to talk further. Please ruminate about it, think about it, and enrich your knowledge with additional reading provided in your study materials. Thank you.